Hello and welcome to This Week at Charlestown Road, a branch of the Heavenbound podcast. My name is Jason Harden. I'm here with Roger Schaus, and this is where we reflect on the weekend that was. We dig a little deeper into a recent sermon to give you something to think about as this week unfolds and preview what's to come this next weekend at Charlestown Road. Roger, this past Sunday, you took us back to one of these classic teachings of Jesus, the vine and the branches in John chapter 15, and you really wanted to focus in on what you called the enduring factor.
Yeah, life is always changing. We can resist that and deny it and hide from that, but it's like a river, it's always flowing. And whether we talk about the work setting, and you got a new boss, you got new coworkers, the school setting, you're off to a new school this coming year, your teacher retires, even in a congregation, there's a lot of ins and outs, people coming in, people going out, people retiring, people moving, and all of that just brings difference and change, and that's hard on people. I'm in the process of moving myself, so I've got a new address, new streets, new neighbors. And there comes a time when you just want to scream, stop, doesn't anything stay the same? And we look all around us. Our favorite restaurant closes, stores close, and so we look at that, and that can really be upsetting to us. We try to anchor ourselves to something that's stable, but it seems like everything we grab onto it wiggles and falls as we fall. So we went to John 15, and as you mentioned, it's that great analogy of the vine and the branches. Jesus is the vine. We as individual disciples are the branches. And 9 times in these first 10 verses, he uses the word abide. Stay connected. Stay with me. Verse 4 just says it specifically. Abide in me. And what we found in the lesson was just a couple of promises and absolutes about Jesus. First of all, Jesus never changes. Hebrews 13 says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. We can't say that about anything. We can't say that about ourselves. We're not the same. We started off very, very little, but look at us today. And so, but Jesus does. Jesus remains the same through all that. Then we talked about this idea of how Jesus never leaves us. He's always there. And the Bible gives us a lot of examples of that, passages to kind of emphasize that. And so as we walk through this idea of the vine and the branches, we found out that when we're connected to Jesus, we become productive. We bear much fruit. We find our strength. Jesus would say, apart from me, you can do nothing. You cut off that vine or cut off that branch, it's going to wither and die. Sometimes we guys get the notion to go buy our wives flowers. That's a wonderful thing to do. Those cut flowers will last about a week, and after that, they're no good. Why? Because they've been cut off. And so abiding in Jesus, staying connected, makes us strong. We talked about his amazing love, and we enjoy his joy. Those are all the things that kind of tie in with that. So we ended the lesson by talking about the enduring factor when life is difficult, and the enduring factor when we face unknown challenges. And to both of those, God is there, and that's what we have to do. So kind of a simple lesson, but it's just a reminder to us that we've got to stay with Jesus through all of this.
That important reminder is freely available at charlestownroad.org, on our YouTube channel, in our sermon podcast feed, many ways to access that good material. Roger, it was powerful to me after listening to your sermon and thinking through that John 15 passage right along with you. Our closing song, this classic hymn, Abide With Me, even that hymn references the idea there is change and decay in all around I see. But the hymn, of course, is a prayer. O thou who changest not, abide with me. What a powerful thing to sing and to pray on the back end of this. Here we are in the middle of the week, Wednesday. The week is in full throttle, all sorts of things going on around us. But I thought if we could circle back here for a few minutes. You started the sermon with this idea of being anchored to something, very similar to the idea of a branch connected to a vine. We understand the idea of an important anchor. You highlighted three different things that some people try to anchor themselves to. We'll circle back around to how we anchor ourselves to Jesus in just a few moments. But I thought here in the middle of the week, this is worth exploring just a little bit more. And so I would love it if you would think a little more deeply with this through me. You said some try to anchor themselves to other people. Why is it not a good idea for another person to be the anchor of my life?
Well, again, as we've been noticing through this lesson, is that people change. And so the person that I knew 5 years ago may not be the person today. People disappoint. Sometimes people cannot come through in their promises. And so while in theory that sounds great, my family will always be there for me, or my dear friend will always be there for me. 2 Timothy 4, as Paul was wrapping up his last sentences of inspiration, he shows us why that's not true. He talks about in verse 9, Demas had forsaken him. Now, had Paul been put all his marbles in Demas' bag and think I'm counting on Demas, well, Demas deserted him. And then in verse 14, he talks about Alexander. Alexander the coppersmith did me much harm. Alexander became a pain to Paul. And then down verse 17, when Paul would talk about his trial, he said, everyone deserted me. Where were they? But then he says, the Lord stood with me. And so when you try to anchor yourself to people, that's kind of a wiggly thing. And when the people are not there and you're counting on them to be there, what's going to happen is you're going to fall and you're going to crash, because people are just that way. And so whether we think about a family member, or think about a preacher, an elder, somebody in the church, that's not the constant. That's not the branch hooked to the vine as we think about it.
Yeah. No one can be connected to Jesus for me. Even if they walk away from Jesus, I am expected still to remain faithfully connected to him. And as we reflect on this idea of change, it may be that a beloved teacher or preacher or parent, grandparent, older brother or sister in Christ, whomever it may be, who has meant a great deal to me, they will eventually go the way of all the earth if this world stands, right? And so what happens when a parent passes away, a spouse passes away, whomever that is? Change and decay in all around I see, but I need an anchor more than just another human being.
And well, let me just jump in here too, and because I hear that all the time. I hear people crying and they're just, they're devastated. Mama died. Mama had been the anchor of that family. Now mama's not here. And everyone who's counting on mama as that vine, they are desperate and hopeless and they don't know what to do. Well, mama can't be that vine. Only Jesus can be that vine. And so those things happen. And we see if you don't hold on to something stable, it's like that child, and that's the analogy I use in this sermon here, a child trying to ride the bike for the first time, and, the parent lets go of the seat, and he's kind of wobbly and wiggly, and he's going to fall, and he's reaching out to keep from falling. Well, you may just reach out to something that's not there, and you're going to crash.
Yeah. What about number 2? Some people anchor themselves to a church building. Now, that one is very different from other people. Why is it a bad idea for me and my spiritual vitality to be anchored to a church building?
Well, a lot of people keep their faith in the church building. It's a place they've been to all their life. They have some historical connection to it. Maybe a father preached there, or maybe grandfather built the building, and they just hold on to that as if that is the substance of their faith. But as we know, buildings come and go. Buildings are remodeled, some closed, some are torn down. And so if my whole faith is in this structure, that's where my faith is. That's what's going to get me through this. That's not a good thing. And again, we remind ourselves of that little child reaching out. He's about to fall. And that's going to happen. And so, both Jason and I have been in some church buildings that ought to close. I mean, I've walked in some that the mold was so thick, you think I can't even breathe in this place. And you think, why don't you clean it up? Or, I'm sure Jason has done this too, been in some congregations that are so small. They're just a handful of people. You can count the people on one hand. You think, why don't you just close the doors and go some other place nearby? No, they will never do that. Why? Because of that building. They love that building. And so that becomes the anchor for some people.
Yeah. So hand in hand with that, a close cousin, your third little warning was some try to anchor themselves even beyond a church building to a specific congregation. Why even a specific congregation? Is that a dangerous thing to be my spiritual anchor point?
Still, with that, under all the layers is you're trying to get people to be your anchor rather than the Lord. And as we noted in the lesson, congregations change. We talked about Sardis in Revelation 3, verse 1. They thought they were alive, but the Lord says they were dead. No church starts dead. I mean, it just, your car battery dies after a while, but it doesn't start dead. You don't go to auto place store and say, I'd like to buy a dead battery. You don't do that because you're not going to go anywhere. And so the point of that simply is that congregations change. Some no longer walk faithfully to the Lord. So if my hope and my faith and my life is in that congregation, then I'm going to crash once again. I'm wobbly on my bicycle. I'm about to fall. I'm reaching out, and that congregation is not the place that I should be reaching out to the Lord.
So what I hear is this challenging balance. We are created by God. Some of us feel it more than others, but we are created by God with the capacity for, we could just call it sentimentality, right? Where many of us, the street that we grew up on means a great deal to us, or the house that we grew up in. And it can be upsetting to drive by that house decades later and it not look anything like it once did, or maybe the house has been completely leveled and something else has been built in its place. I hear that, having lived in this community now for just over 9 years. I hear people talking about how years ago, all around us, this just used to be farmland, gentle, green, rolling hills, wide open fields. Well, you can stand and look in any direction in our community and you got to drive a little ways to find farmland again, right? There is just development, building all around us. And in many ways, that is exciting. It opens up new opportunities, more people who need to hear the good news of Jesus Christ. But let me just put you on the spot. How can I balance between, mature spirituality anchored where it needs to be in Jesus, and this sentimentality where I just naturally long perhaps for the way things used to be? Sentimentality isn't sinful, right? And so how can I find this balance, do you think?
Well, I don't think I'm the right guy to ask because I struggle with this because I am one who has a sentimentality. I really like the connection to the past. Just yesterday, give you an example. Back in the late 90s, I went to India and preached there, and I got this little elephant that's just bright and colorful. I'd given it to my parents. Well, both my parents had passed away. It came back to me. And, it reminds me of my parents. It reminds me of my trip to Africa. Well, I gave it to one of my granddaughters yesterday, and I said, now, this is not just an elephant. Let me tell you a story about this elephant. I said, it came from India. It belonged to my parents, and now it's yours. And my daughter was right there, and she goes, are you sure you want to give this up? And of course, back in my mind is, no, but you do. And so part of sentimentality is understanding a lot of this is just wrapped around in things. And again, some people have their houses cluttered with things, and they're just from the past. And I have not the pleasure, but I've had the duty of cleaning out 2 homes before of older people. And it's just full of stuff from the 30s and the 40s and 50s and newspaper articles from great snowstorms, 40 years ago. But they can't get rid of it. They just can't get rid of it. And so some of that is going to hold us back. And some of that is going to keep us in a time period where we forget that. I love that passage in Chronicles where it talks about the men of Issachar, how they understood the times. And we have to understand the times. This is not the 1970s, and some people operate that way. Some churches operate that way. And so it's one thing to like things of the past. It's one thing to say, I have a family connection here and things like that. But I got to realize that river of change is still flowing. That river of life is still going. And I'm going to miss some things. I'm going to miss opportunities, and things can be better. Things can be more efficient. Things can be, just so much easier today. Years and years ago, to do what we're doing right now, podcast is going to be heard all over the world.
It would cost thousands and thousands of dollars.
And it wasn't even possible. Or to write something like I do in my blog, and it's sent worldwide. Not possible. Now, if I was stuck in the 1970s, I'd have my electric typewriter out, and I'd still be banging away on that thing, and I'd write an article out, print it, and give it to my brethren here at this congregation. That'd be it. But because of technology, because of the times, you see that river flows. And so that's how you deal with it. And you hold those precious memories more so in your heart than literally doing those things. And so being able to leave a house, this is a house I lived in for 40 years. Okay. Well, okay. It's just a house though. Or this church building, sometimes congregations leave from one place to another place. And to think, well, we've always worshiped on this street. Well, we worship God, and God is everywhere. And so that's my thought about that. I mean, I'm a collector of old religious things. I'm a collector of a lot of history, but I realize you can't go back to the 1800s. This is where we are. Learn from it, use it, but then don't let it hold you back. That's the key thing.
Yeah, and that is easier said than done at times. But what a blessing, obviously, for the emphasis of the sermon to be on the fact that Jesus, you took us back to that great passage in Hebrews. Jesus is the same yesterday and today and forever. I thought it was a powerful moment in the sermon when you really emphasize Jesus is the same as he was in the days of Peter, Andrew, James, and John. Now, obviously, his form is different, but his heart, his nature, is the same. And in this world where we experience so much change, again, as we say, change and decay in all around I see. What a blessing to be able to pray to and be intimately connected to the Jesus who does not change. In our last minute or two together, any thoughts here for the middle of the week, how I can nurture that vibrant connection with this Jesus who does not change?
Well, the Jesus that saw you when you were a little child and when you were a teenager and when you were in college, all those years, it's the same Jesus. And you can go, this has happened to me. I go into a store and I'm looking for something specific and they say, we no longer carry that. Oh, great. Now what am I going to do? That's what you think. But Jesus is going to be there. He's still going to forgive you. He's still going to bless you. And so sometimes there's just things I just don't know what I can count on. Well, I can count on Jesus because the Bible promises he has been there. He will be there. He's blessed me. He's answered my prayers. And so that's what gets us through. When we try to put our hope on certain things, streets change all around, here. There's all kinds of road construction and who knows what they're doing. But Jesus is going to be the same. And not only was he the same in the past, he's going to be the same tomorrow. And that's just something you can count on. And that will lift you up and give you the hope.
Yeah. We are warned on more than one occasion in the Bible, in different ways, not to look back on the former days as if, well, that was the best. And it's all downhill from here. There is a reason why we consistently say in these podcast conversations that the best is yet to come. And that is true because of Jesus, not because of the people around us or a particular church building or even a specific congregation, but it's true because of Jesus. And so thank you, Roger, for this powerful reminder. Again, the sermon was called The Enduring Factor, available at charlestownroad.org and on all of those other social media channels. We appreciate that powerful reminder. It is Wednesday, and we are looking forward to the opportunity to being able to be together this evening at 7:00 p.m. This is actually the last lesson in this quarter-long study where we've had our men and women separated into gender-specific studies. Roger, you and I have been co-teaching in the auditorium. We have not done this in a very, very, very long time, but it's been encouraging to me, and I know to you, to spend time just with the brothers in our church family. We'll be wrapping this whole series up just by talking about how men of God can finish strong, what it takes to finish strong, and how we don't just think about that when we are yards away from the finish line, but that really goes into shaping our lifestyles. And so we would love to see you this evening at 7:00 p.m. We have Bible classes for all ages. Roger, we're also very much looking forward to this Sunday and the beginning of our Vacation Bible School.
Yeah, it kicks off this Sunday, 9:30. And then we will also have a service at 5 p.m. and then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 7 p.m. The children are following our theme this year as the joy of the journey. And they're going to be looking at the Apostle Paul's journeys. And they're going to be talking about being brave and being happy and being ready and being busy and being right as they walk through the apostles' different journeys. Great opportunity for the young people. Love it. Our people just go way out of their comfort zone to make things look great and pretty for the kids. We are also, for the adults, are bringing in a guest speaker, Sean Jeffers from Orlando area. And he's going to be, again, following our theme about the joy of the journey. And he's going to be talking about the need for one another, and then the need for unity, and then the need for encouragement, the need for active membership, the need for growth, and the need for gratitude. And those would be incredible lessons. I've heard Sean several times, and he just always does just an outstanding job. Again, this is open for all of us. We'd say mom, dad, kids, bring your grandkids, bring your next door neighbor. And this is just a great opportunity to spend some time together and learn together from the Lord.
A lot to look forward to, no doubt. Roger, thank you so much for joining me in studio today. Thanks to all of you for listening to This Week at Charlestown Road. We're looking forward to tonight, 7:00 p.m. We're already looking forward to Sunday, the best day of the week, and we would love to have you come and grow with us.